Whenever you surrender to excellence, the universe responds.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have on Chance McClain. He is a master storyteller and the visionary behind Heritage Films. With more than 800 cinematic documentaries crafted, Chance captures the spirit of families and founders in a way that inspires and preserves. Chance, good morning. Welcome on Behind Their Success podcast.
Good morning, Peyton. I always love a dude that's got a unique name. I've grown up, I'm 52, got the name Chance. I love when I see somebody with wild names, and I love your name. Squire, first, last, you could have been a poet, dude.
Tower agreement, isn't it? It's been a good and bad thing my whole life because, my name's been said wrong my entire life. I've been called Peyton. My father-in-law still calls me Peyton.
Well, you can feel free to refer to me as Chase all day. So I feel your pain.
Well, Chance, so tell us, so filmmaking, right? Filmmaking and doing stuff for kind of legacy filmmaker. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, about the company itself, for about the last 10 years, I started Heritage Films about 10 years ago. A buddy of mine asked me to film his dad. I had been doing internet videos and TV, anything for a buck type video work for a little while. And he asked me to film his dad. And I'm like, what's wrong with your dad? I said, nothing, dude. He's turning 75. And I want my kids to know their pawpaw. So just freaking set the camera down and BS with him for a little while. I said, all right. So I did it. And he was in radio and I did it. And it came out great. And talked to him about growing up in East Texas and all these little nuanced stories from his life, just from literally chit-chatting with him for an afternoon. But he talked about it on air, and a few people tracked me down and said, hey, I want to do this for my grandpa. And so I did a few more. I was just kind of braiding them in with my normal workflow. And then about a year later, my stepdad, who I was very, very close with, told us at Thanksgiving, literally sitting around a campfire. And he's like, well, guys, got some bad news. Got stage 4 pancreatic, and they tell me a year to 12 months. We're like, spit your beer out. What the heck? So I had done some of these films, and I said, hey, man, could we do this? It's very, like I said, very, very close with him. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't do the interview, so I had my radio buddy do it. And a story that could be very long, I will greatly condense for your audience. About 2 months later, they sat down and filmed on a Tuesday. And he died on Sunday.
Wow.
And so 3 or 4 days later, we're at the viewing. He brought a bottle of bourbon, which is totally tasteless, but we're sitting out in his truck, sipping on some brown water. And he's a radio guy, huge personality, huge fun. And this was one of the very serious and ironically sober times when he's like, hey man, you got something here. You should turn that into a business. So I went to my wife and said, let's give it a go. So we did, and now he was right, and we've really built something pretty special, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a really powerful founding story there that you should really lean into. Sure, that's a fantastic story. That's really interesting. Just entrepreneurs and talking through legacy, you eventually start to think about legacy, and your company has a very interesting way of helping solidify that, for families and through generations, right?
That's the goal. If you were talking to me for the first couple hundred films, it would be a different story. At the beginning, it was trying to survive. I definitely wanted to make good movies, and I definitely love talking to the people, but it was trying to survive. And then once I kind of surrendered to, okay, we can do this. This works. And I really started focusing on becoming awesome. It sounds corny, but I was like, I want to really, really authentically get to know these people and have them express. It's people that generally aren't accustomed to a room full of cameras and lights and microphones. So you got to lower the stress there. And let's visit with them. Like, I don't interview anybody. We visit, we chat. I know about them before I get there from some forums and stuff, and lower their guard and talk. And by the end of the day or 2 or 3 or whatever package we go through, there's tears, there's laughter. It's cathartic, but it's for them, but it's a blast. I mean, we're swimming in nostalgia for a couple of days. It's pretty sweet.
I bet. Yeah. There's some real powerful moments in there, right? As people are kind of looking back over their lives and what they want to leave, for their family or friends or whoever. Yeah. Can you speak to maybe some of those moments in there, or some of those stories? Obviously protecting people, but some of the more powerful things you've seen come out of some of those
Sure.
interviews slash videos.
There's hundreds. Literally, part of my process is asking people. I mean, look at the name of your podcast. Asking these people who are generally some level of success, however you want to define it, at the root of it, they're successful in that 90% of the time they raised a kid that said, "Dad, you're awesome. I want your story for my kids." And I don't care. Dad may have just been a mailman and not some oil tycoon, but he raised a kid with the morals that wants those values passed down. So that's successful to me. And so every person I ask, to what do you attribute your success? And by the time you weed through the people that lie and say that it's luck, you do find kind of the root stuff. You find the crap that you read in Proverbs. That's what it all boils down to. The rules of success are simple, and you know them in your head. You feel them in your heart. One of my favorite stories is one that I pissed at myself because I didn't capture it on film. But this young man reached out to me in August, a number of years back, and said, "We got to do this fast. My papa has stage 4 cancer, and he's a farmer, and we got to get his story done." And so we're like, okay, so we shift the schedule around, and we're able to get out there and we film it. And this guy, I tell stories terribly. He ends up surviving the stage 4 cancer. He was August. He was supposed to not see Christmas, and he became a mentor of mine for the next 4 years and a dear friend. But one of the moments while we're filming, we took a break, and his wife had passed away a number of years before. But while she was like going through the end of her life, he was having to get up instead of 5 o'clock like a normal farmer. He was having to get up at 3 o'clock because he had to take care of her crap. And so the camera's not rolling, and I'm like, "Jacko, dude, that must have been hard." And he's sitting there farting around on his iPhone, and he looks up at me. He goes, "Chance, what does hard got to do with anything?" And I'm like, "Oh." He's like, "Yeah, hard. That's just a word that you tell people because you're complaining." He goes, "Try to never complain to people." He's giving me advice. This is the first day I met the man. He's like, "Try to never complain, man. Nobody wants to hear your complaints. Hard, tired, busy, get them out of your vocabulary." How's that for advice? Try to do it yourself. I'll tell you what, you're going to do it 10 times today. And you even live in this space. I almost said it's hard.
Yeah, right. It's hard. Right? Yeah.
Try not, it changes the way that you see the world whenever you look at a guy. And I kind of downplayed. I said he's a farmer. He definitely was a farmer, but they had about 5,000 acres of seed rice. He was a very successful farmer.
He's running a real business there.
Yeah, for sure. But hard, busy, and tired are words that we say all the time, and try to eliminate them from your vocabulary. That would be a small piece of advice from one of these legends that I've talked to.
That's some great stuff. And like I said, I can't imagine. I assume you're going to say the same thing about your work, but my work here in talking to entrepreneurs, it's the same thing. It's very cathartic and therapeutic for me. Like half the time, like I'm just talking to myself or, what people are, I need these lessons just as much as anybody else. It's amazing when I come back and listen to some of these episodes that a guest or even me says some point and I'm like, wow, I absolutely needed to hear that right now. Right.
Oh yeah.
And it's amazing. It's me speaking to myself.
Totally. You get that experience whenever you go away from church for a while, like we all do. And then you happen to go back or wherever you go, synagogue, whatever people are into, but you go back and it's like the message that you end up hearing. You're like, seriously? That's yeah, you nailed it. When I got into this thing, I didn't have any particular affinity for older people, call it 70 to 100. Well, I've done a couple 102-year-olds, so 60s to 100s. They were just old people to me. They dressed terribly. You have to talk to them very loudly. You kind of kid glove them because they're old. That's what I thought. Well, once you start spending time with them, with the olds, you realize that, oh, no. They're far deeper and richer and more interesting than my Gen X peers or my millennial friends and my Zoomer kids. They've got this depth and breadth and they just, them growing up, they wore different costumes than us, but they're exactly the same. I'll give you a good brief example. I was talking to one of the centurions, no, it wasn't a fighting lady. She was 100, okay?
He was
But
at home.
she had all the snap that you and I have. And she was talking about her husband that she married in like the mid 30s. Okay. This is a number of years ago. I filmed this. And I'm talking about, you know, using words like dating and stuff. And she was saying things like, well, he had been courting on me for, a month and I could tell. And I'm like, courting on you.
You think?
So he was hitting on you. And this is a 100-year-old lady. She's like, yeah, yes, he was hitting on me. And it's weird to see this body that's reflecting something that you don't expect modern vernacular to come out of, but you realize that it is all the same. Courting was hitting on.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that you made the point too, that, a lot of these, all these interviews come back and you could probably go through all of them and they got, the same general 10 to 20 principles or, values for life, right? Of what makes a successful person. And that's the same thing, I find here in this podcast. It's like we go over the same 20 topics or something over and over again, because it all comes back to these handful of things that are generally, if you do these handful of things, you can live generally a happy and successful.
Yeah, you're right, Peyton. And I feel like there's 1,000 books that all say the same thing, but I think I've read them all.
Yeah. And I'm the same way, a guy, the voracious reader, like it's really true. Like every single one of those books is just like the author's version of the same thing. And I'm not saying they don't have, really good value, because there are different wordings and different authors going to be able to hit people differently and reach different people. So that's important to have unique messages, but the principles are really pretty much the same. The principles in those books are not going to be different unless they're just not good. It actually
Yeah.
teach you all the principles. Yeah.
Okay, so a key book for me that I literally feel like if somebody says, "Hey, I want to start a company just like yours," I'll say, "Okay, here's your guidebook. It's sitting right there. I'm looking at it. How to Win Friends and Influence People." Dale Carnegie, old school,
Yep.
ancient book. But dude, you read that, and if you were to drop that thing into an AI, an LLM, and say, "Summarize this in a sentence," it would be ask short questions with long answers. That's what I do. That's what I try to do. And
Yeah.
the craft behind what I do is, how do I say this in a way that this particular person I'm talking to will flower and will talk, whether they're super shy or you can't get them to shut up. You got to focus them. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to ask short questions with long answers and make everybody in the room comfortable.
Yeah. So that, Warren Buffett, he has a Dale Carnegie public speaking certificate he got like in the 30s or so. And he credits that as the number one thing for success over all his degrees and whatever else he's doing. And
I
it
didn't know
is
that.
literally just figuring out how to communicate with people.
Mm. And simplifying is, if I could move my camera, I have a sign, a lit up sign that I have to remind myself to fight the temptation. It says, simplify and solve problems. Everything I want to do, I want to simplify, and from work to personal relationships to everything. I'm in the middle of listening to a podcast right now. It's called How I Write, I believe is the name of the podcast, breaking down all these famous speeches from the last 100, 200 years, and how often the speeches, the words that stand out to us are mostly single syllable words. Simple, 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 simple. Ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. That type of stuff. It's pithy, short, memorable stuff that matters. And that's in line with simplifying to me.
Listen to Alex Hormozy stuff a lot. He's a, business podcast guy, but he talks about all the time. It's like all your copy and ad and all your business communication needs to be at like a second or third grade. It's not like you're talking down to people or whatnot, but it's, if you can't explain like what you do and what your offer is and dumb that down to like a third grade level to everybody can understand, it's like you don't understand. And you
Right.
got to get much more clear on that. And that's where, communication, language, branding, messaging, all that stuff comes into play, is finding that message and that story.
And think about Elon with Tesla. I'm talking back in like 2010. He was like, I want my products to be so good that I don't have to market. I mean, that's a testament to quality. Like, I want these things to be bulletproof. You don't need ads if you're awesome.
Yeah. Or if the competition sucks so bad.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's awesome, Chance. So, What would you say has been your best skill that's helped you be successful in your area?
Wow, I could go 1,000 directions because I've really had a transformation at a core level, and to me, I use the analogy of it feels like twisting steel whenever you try to break your natural tendencies. Whatever comes
Mhm.
to you naturally and you realize it's wrong or was destructive to authentically change, and so there's been so much change that it's difficult to answer. The first blush, it's I switched to quality. I wanna be excellent. I wanna be excellent. I want everything to be excellent. That's a quick summary of be excellent in everything. Another version or another angle I could tell you is, I thought I was awesome, and I thought it was me that was special, and so I eschewed things like processes and systems. I wanted each film to be a work of art, and I still do. I still 100% do, but I've learned to surrender to systems and realizing that even with systems, the creativity and the art behind our films is it is going to flourish still, even though it's going to take place in a way that's more satisfactory to the client because it's quicker. You know, systemizing doesn't mean surrendering self. I've never said that sentence, but that is, I thought one thing and I was wrong. Systemizing allows you to flourish.
And that's great advice. And so, about systems, I originally I quit my corporate job to get out of a prison there, and I just kind of built my own new prison, my new job because I didn't have any systems.
I was an employee for a long time in my life too. Again, I'm 52. I've only been doing this 10 years. There's a lot of years out there. You know, I
Mhm.
was in the army for 4 years. I failed out of college, eloped, got married, joined the army, served for 4 years, loved it, got out, various sales jobs, wrote a rap song that ended up going viral before things went viral. That landed me a job in radio. So I worked sports radio for 10 years, in which time I ran a sports radio station. I was a program director and loved the sports world, worked for the Texans, the Rockets, the Astros, all this. There's a point here. Wrote a Broadway musical, off Broadway musical along the way. Got to go to New York and spend some time there, and then I got into film and all of these different facets before I found myself. And I couldn't have done what I do without all those things. Anyway, it's Steve Jobs' connect the dots speech from the Stanford commencement speech he
Yeah.
gave, where you don't know what the hell's going on until you look back. That's where I am
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And, kudos to you is that the rare ability you have there that 98% of the population doesn't have is the ability to change their identity. I mean, what I would say is everybody does have the ability to
They
do
do.
it, but 98% of people won't. Right.
And it goes back to the first thing I said, because it's hard.
Yeah. Because
It
it's
is
hard.
hard.
You
And
can't let go of these things that you believe that you are. But it's amazing if you look back over your life, you've changed in all kinds of different ways, not just
everybody
you, but
has.
everybody has. They can't realize that where they're at today isn't necessarily like where they have to, be, right? You can let
Mm.
go of things and change at any time that you want. And I
Yeah.
guess the process is simple. The process can be hard.
If you embrace the change, you're gonna be fine. And what you have to do is look at where you've been that led to where you are,
Yeah.
and know that every one of your instincts, decisions, I am right here. This is not where I wanna be. Okay, definitionally, something's gotta change.
Mhm.
Your pattern of decision making got you here. That's in Extreme Ownership, another book. Your pattern of decisions got you here. I don't wanna be here, therefore you have to change. And often, the change is some very, very fundamental thing
Mhm.
that I had a huge ego, and it was an unwarranted ego that I had it, and I could
Yeah.
look back and say, "I've always done a little bit better each year, a little bit better," but I was still unhappy. Now I'm happy. I love what I do. I love walking into somebody's home that I don't know and then falling in love with them and leaving and crying.
That's amazing, man. That's great stuff. So kind of looking back again, Chance, tell me one key decision you made that really helped you go down this journey.
Key decision that made me get to here. I'm really thinking where we turned the table for sure was where I stopped thinking about quantity and started thinking about quality. I
Mm,
stopped thinking, I need to do more of these so that I can pay my bills, and started thinking, I need to do these better. I need to make these families happier. It sounds corny, but I hope people know that it's totally true. Whenever you surrender to excellence, the universe responds.
Yeah.
It just does. And then you get close to the edge because you're not doing the volume you were doing. And then the volume starts picking up because it's high quality and they know, people know, they know instinctively when you walk into the room. I would guarantee you every film for the last 6 years that I walked in, the people are like, this guy knows his stuff.
Yeah. He's ready.
And
He's prepared. Yeah.
absolutely. And my whole team. And I'd
Yeah.
also say another one, which is kind of a good to great philosophy from Colin's book, is the right
Mhm.
seat on the butt. I've built a team around me that is character first, and then skills, talent second. Character first. Are you a good human being? I'm bringing you into somebody's mom's house. Are you a good
No.
dude? Yeah. Okay, good. I actually got, it was advice from, of all people, Tillman Fertitta. I was doing some work for Landry's. He owns Landry's, billionaire guy. And I was in
Mhm.
his office filming some crap with his attorneys before I was doing Heritage. And he was filming his whatever billionaire TV show he had. And he was sick of the film crews, but he knew I was working with his attorney. So he comes out and he plops down on the couch and I'm sitting there because my crew's in there filming this tiny room. And I'm like, oh, hi, Mr. Fertitta. And he knew I was there. So short conversation turned in, do you want any advice? And I'm like, yeah, tell me something that helps you, your $1 billion empire, that also helped me with my little startup film company. He said, hire people you trust. Hire people you trust because humans are just the smartest of the monkeys. We're smarter than all the other monkeys, but we're very base. But you can't teach your trust. Once you've established that you can trust somebody, you can train them to do what you need them to do. And I kind of turned that from trust into character. So the people that are on my team are high character people that have all become very, 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 very good at what they do.
Great advice. And recent, over the last month or so, I've been rereading several books I've read in the past. Who Not How is one of them. And that's the whole book is about, asking the question, who can do this instead of how can I do it? And how that opens up your whole world and hiring people and leveraging, constantly doing 80/20 and leveraging your time by bringing trusted, great talent around you.
When we do this again in a year, I will have read it, I assure you.
No, Who Not How. Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. So, you kind of talked about some of the best decisions you made there. Tell us one that didn't go so well.
I can tell you a funny one.
Let's
Um,
do that.
well, it ended up being a great film, but it was a money loser. This is a business podcast, right? So in the early days of Heritage, I advertised on radio on my friend's radio show here locally. And most of my work was all local, or then every now and then be like, oh, we got to drive to Austin from Houston. And then I started doing a few out of state. And so I booked one in California and I was like, oh, awesome. And so we give them the quote for the film. And then I said, but there's a travel fee too, because it's got to get there. And I said, probably like a couple grand. So they said, cool. I billed them a couple grand. They paid their travel fee. And then it came time to book travel. And I was flying from Houston to San Francisco. And then it was 7 hours north, a drive. And we have all of our equipment, and shipping all the equipment was expensive. Airfare, even airfare to Oakland was expensive. And then renting a Tahoe to pull all of our crap in, it ain't $110 like it is when you go to Indiana. It was $500 a day. So my travel ended up being almost like the hotels were $350 a night, not 110 like we're in the Midwest. Anyway, I ended up losing my butt on that component of it. Fascinating lady though. So my lesson, where I got burned is do my research before I quote prices whenever there's a variable. That would be
That's probably your artist ability coming out there, and maybe not the detail following through. Right?
wasn't quite up on the details. Yes, sir. And,
No.
and maybe to tie that in with going back to quality, I grew up without money. I had my lived in a car phase. Well, and I still, all that's still in me. And so my instincts are always, so right now I want to do this for the most reasonable price that is successful on my end, but the most reasonable price possible. And I told you that I started focusing on quality more than anything. It meant losing business because when I would find out from somebody what the story of dad is, or about a third of our films are self, where they're like, I kind of want to share my stuff for my kids and grandkids. I'm honest with them and say, oh man, yeah, your film is not this isn't a one-day sit down. This is a couple days, and I need to talk to some of the people around you too, so it's a more expensive product is what I believe. And I was hesitant, I was afraid to say words like that because I thought, "Oh, this person thinks that I just want more money." And there was a time in the first few years where on that would have been true. Like, but it's not anymore. Now it's, "No, dude, this is I'm telling you this because I swear to God, this is what I think makes your best movie." I think that kinda combined 3 topics, but, maybe people could take
Yeah.
something away. Be
Yeah.
authentic, people.
Yeah, being authentic and that's been a transition in my business too. And not to keep bringing it back to me, but like the quality over quantity, right? And I've very much made that shift in the last 12 months of quality over quantity. When it comes to clients, when it comes to, jobs, when comes to everything, it's like, and to your point, I had to make some shifts in my business recently where it was a little scary because yeah, I probably ran off quite a bit of business, but that was a purposeful shift,
Yeah.
right? A purposeful shift to free up my time so I can focus on the 80/20 and focus, get better and better at the quality because then you become this more and more rare type person, right? And you become more and more valuable and
Mm.
people will absolutely seek you out because you're this guy that can do this one thing, amazing ability. And then you can make so much more money because you're just stuck right there in your genius zone, hitting the same button over and over again. That's very valuable for your clients and customers and everybody's happy, right? Because
Oh,
you're
and
focused.
satisfying to you. Like, nobody
Yeah.
can out me, right? Nobody
Yeah.
can out you. And once you find the people will find you. There's a gravity when you're authentic. When you are authentic, you create a gravity, and the right things are attracted to you.
Yeah.
Without getting
Yeah.
metaphysical, I truly 1,000%, I've experienced it. I've experienced it in my own life. It's true.
100%. And I'm your more analytical type guy that's like, oh, I don't want to go in woo woo land or whatever. But like, that's not, I mean, it's 100% a fact that, as you develop yourself, become authentic, become very clear of what you're looking for, you're going to find it. It's going to show up at some.
You gotta put yourself out there. You can't go super be yourself in a closet. You literally
Yeah.
gotta get out in the world. If you wanna step out of the metaphysical world in the woo-woo place, screw all that nonsense. Listen to what Peyton said, what I'm telling you. You gotta get out in the world authentically, and you'll meet eyes with it just happens. It's God, it's wild. It's awesome.
Yeah. And it's wild. And, I would say I've been doing that for say 4 or 5 years now, where I've like purposely been putting myself out there. And the amount of people and rooms I've been in the last 4 or 5 years that I never would have thought possible 10,
Yeah.
15 years ago. Like I'm
Oh,
doing that I never would have thought possible in rooms, networking with people where I'm like, holy crap, do you know who that person is? That kind of thing.
man. Dude, I've lived a life. Grateful for everything. Yeah. Good good stuff out there. It's nonstop stories, a lot of cool things doing
Yeah.
exactly that.
So last question for you here, Chance. Man, if you had one piece of advice to give your younger self, kind of near the beginning of this entrepreneur journey, what would that be?
Follow your gifts, not your desires.
Mm.
So, a lot of people that, people say, "Follow your heart, do what you dream to do." No, 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 no. God put stuff in us that we all know. Those are your gifts, and you know what they are. It's not simply what you're attracted to, it's what you're good at. It's what you can sit there doinking with all day. Video games don't count. Follow your gifts, not your desires. That is what I believe. And my gifts, God made me into a dude that is incredibly comfortable talking to people. Comes very natural. I love people.
Awesome, man. This has been a fantastic conversation, man. So, what's the best way, listeners can connect with you or get to know more about what you do?
Sure. Yourheritagefilm.com. And if I could go back and change one thing from the past from your previous question, some people still can't spell your, but it's a Y-O-U-R. Okay.
Oh,
It's not you are. Yourheritagefilm.com. And then all the regular socials, my name, Chance McClain, or on X, I'm Texas Chance, which is only not for the faint of heart, but it's a lot of fun and I told you I'm all about authenticity. That's the real me.
That's amazing. Chance, man, I appreciate you. This has been a fabulous conversation. Listeners, catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.